that Austria has the world's 7th highest annual rainfall. And, and so we had a lot of rain while we were shooting.
To the world, she was flawless. The golden-voiced nanny who floated down from the clouds, the spirited nun who filled the hills with music, the actress who seemed to live a fairy tale on and off screen. But behind the applause and the bright lights, Julie Andrews carried a life far more complicated. One marked by war, abuse, heartbreak, reinvention, and even a secret romance she kept hidden for decades. Hers is not just the story of a star. It is the story of survival. Julie Andrews, one of the most beloved stars of stage and screen, has long been admired for her flawless voice, radiant presence, and seemingly fairy tale life. To the world, she was the embodiment of grace and perfection. Mary Poppins with her magical umbrella, and Maria von Trapp dancing through alpine meadows. Yet behind the dazzling career and public adoration, her journey was far more complex, scarred by trauma, personal struggles, and hidden choices that she revealed only later in life. Born Julia Elizabeth Wells on October 1, 1935, in Walton-on-Thames, England, she entered a world shadowed by the outbreak of war. Her earliest memories were shaped by the London Blitz, when bombs rained down from the sky between 1940 and 1941, and nights were punctuated by the terrifying whistle of falling explosives. Many children were evacuated to safety, but young Julie remained, enduring food rationing and fear while sheltering with her family. The chaos outside was mirrored inside her own home, where her mother, Barbara Ward Morris, and her stepfather, Ted Andrews, both struggled with alcoholism. Her childhood sanctuary came not from parental love, but from music. Ted, a vaudeville entertainer, recognized her extraordinary 4-octave voice and arranged lessons with the renowned vocal coach, Madame Lillian Stiles Allen, who refined Julie's natural gift. Yet Ted was also the source of her deepest pain. When Julie was just 9, he began crossing unforgivable boundaries, abusing her in ways that forced her as a teenager to bolt her bedroom door for safety. Her mother knew of the abuse, but turned away, leaving silence to fill the home. Those wounds would remain hidden from the public eye until Julie revealed them decades later in her 2008 memoir, Home. Despite the turmoil, her talent propelled her forward. At age 10, she was performing in a vaudeville act with her mother and stepfather, singing for weary wartime audiences. By 12, she had already made history as the youngest solo artist to perform at the prestigious Royal Command performance before King George VI. School faded into the background. Her career became not just her passion, but her family's lifeline, as she helped support them financially. While audiences marveled at the girl with the golden pigtails and flawless notes, few saw the teenager pouring her pain into every song as a way to survive. In her late teens, she had already conquered Britain's airwaves, pantomimes, and theater stages. But in 1954, her life changed forever when Broadway legends Alan J. Lerner and Frederick Loewe sought a leading lady for their ambitious new musical, My Fair Lady. They needed an actress who could believably transform from a rough-edged Cockney flower girl into a refined lady, all while carrying one of the most demanding vocal scores in musical theater. A recommendation from actress Hattie Jacques led them to Julie. Though it meant leaving her family in England, her father encouraged her to seize the opportunity. At just 19, she crossed the Atlantic and stepped onto Broadway, making her debut as Eliza Doolittle on March 15, 1956. From the very first performance alongside Rex Harrison, she captivated critics and audiences. The New York Times hailed her voice as clear as a spring morning, and her acting as brimming with charm and precision. The production ran for 6 years and cemented Julie as a star, both in America and back home in Britain when she reprised the role in London. Yet, success came with disappointment. When Warner Brothers adapted My Fair Lady for film in 1962, Julie was passed over in favor of Audrey Hepburn. The decision devastated her. She publicly congratulated Audrey with grace, but privately, the rejection stung deeply. Ironically, that loss opened the door to an even greater triumph. Walt Disney, who had long dreamed of making Mary Poppins, attended a performance of Camelot, in which Julie starred opposite Richard Burton. Captivated by her, Disney offered her the lead role. Though Julie was newly pregnant, Disney famously reassured her, "That's okay, we'll wait." When the film premiered in 1964, it became an instant classic, showcasing Julie's perfect balance of sternness, warmth, and whimsy. She won the Academy Award for Best Actress for her very first film role, delivering a slyly pointed thanks to Jack Warner, the studio executive who had denied her My Fair Lady. The following year brought The Sound of Music, released in 1965, which became one of the highest-grossing films of all time and sealed her status as an icon. Her portrayal of Maria von Trapp, spirited, vulnerable, and endlessly charming, earned her another Oscar nomination and worldwide devotion. Amid the triumphs, however, came temptations. On the set of The Sound of Music, Julie and her co-star, Christopher Plummer, shared a genuine, if unspoken, attraction. Both married, they kept their feelings restrained, though Plummer later admitted they harbored a quiet crush on one another during filming in Austria. Julie's past experiences with betrayal and broken trust, particularly within her family, made her wary of crossing boundaries. She resisted, but not long after, while working on another project in 1965, she became entangled in an affair with a different married co-star. Their on-screen chemistry spilled into real life, and soon they were meeting discreetly in hotel rooms under the pretense of rehearsals. For months they kept their romance hidden, careful to avoid discovery. But rumors began to circulate, and studio executives, fearing the scandal could destroy not only their careers, but the profitability of their films, delivered an ultimatum: end the affair or face ruin. Julie chose her career and ended the relationship, though the shadow of it lingered for years. The secrecy weighed heavily on her marriage to set designer Tony Walton, whom she had wed in 1959 and with whom she shared a daughter, Emma. Born in Tavisat, 1962. Already strained by distance, her career keeping her on location and his work consuming him, the marriage collapsed by 1969. Professionally, Julie also faced challenges in breaking free from her wholesome, perfect nanny image. Audiences adored her as the virtuous heroine with impeccable diction, but that narrow image threatened to trap her. She sought roles that would stretch her range, appearing in the satirical The Americanization of Emily and Alfred Hitchcock's Torn Curtain alongside Paul Newman, proving she could carry dramatic material without song. Yet critics and audiences still associated her with sweetness and purity. In 1968, she starred in Star, a biopic of actress Gertrude Lawrence, which flopped disastrously. The 1970s brought more setbacks, including Darling Lily, directed by Blake Edwards, whom Julie married that same year. Intended to showcase her sensual side, complete with risque scenes, it instead bombed at the box office, further damaging her career. Hollywood began to see her as a fading star, her shine dulled by financial disappointments. At home, Blake Edwards was both her partner and a challenge. Brilliant but troubled, he battled depression, and Julie became his emotional anchor as well as his wife. She poured her energy into protecting her family while carefully guarding her public image, knowing from experience how easily reputations could be shattered. She carried the lesson of her 1965 affair with her, never again willing to risk everything on a moment of temptation. Professionally, reinvention became her salvation. In 1979, Edwards cast her in the comedy 10, which became a major hit, and reintroduced her to audiences in a fresh light. In 1981, she shocked viewers with her topless appearance in S.O.B., a deliberate move to burn away the good girl image. But it was 1982's Victoria, that secured her full reinvention. Playing a woman forced to impersonate a man pretending to be a woman, Julie dazzled with wit, boldness, and emotional complexity. The role earned her another Academy Award, nomination, a Golden Globe, and renewed respect from critics. Her personal life, however, remained a balancing act. Caring for Blake through his bouts of depression, raising her daughter Emma, and parenting the two daughters she and Blake adopted from Vietnam, Amy and Joanna, required the same discipline she had honed as a child performer. Show up, deliver, no matter the storms behind the curtain. By the mid-1990s, Julie returned to Broadway in a stage version of Victor Victoria, performing night after night with the same crystalline voice that had defined her since childhood. But in 1997, she began noticing hoarseness. Doctors discovered a lesion on her vocal cords and recommended surgery. The procedure, meant to be routine, instead left her vocal cords permanently scarred. The 4-octave range that had carried her from war-torn London to Hollywood royalty was gone forever. The loss was devastating. She sued Mount Sinai Hospital and settled in 2000, but no compensation could restore her voice. For a woman who had endured war, abuse, heartbreak, and reinvention, losing the gift that defined her was shattering. And yet, once more, Julie reinvented herself. She embraced voice acting, lending her regal tones to Queen Lillian in the Shrek films and to Queen Clarisse in the Princess Diaries series, delighting a new generation of fans. With her daughter Emma, she co-authored more than 30 children's books, pouring her creativity into nurturing young imaginations. In 2017, she created Julie's Green Room, a Netflix series introducing children to the performing arts. Even in her 80s, she remained active, using her platform to inspire and educate. She spoke candidly in interviews about her abusive childhood, the trauma of losing her voice, and the challenges of navigating fame. But one chapter she had long avoided was the affair of 1965. For decades, it remained an unspoken truth, known only to a few. She chose silence, not only to protect her career, but to shield her family from scandal. Finally, in her late 80s, she acknowledged it. With honesty and humility, she described how she and her co-star, both married, had fallen into an intense but short-lived romance born of long hours, shared isolation, and vulnerability. They had met secretly in hotels, always careful to avoid being seen, until rumors forced them to end it under threat of career destruction. Julie did not attempt to justify it. She admitted the hurt it caused, the regret it left, and the way it had haunted her first marriage. It was a mistake, she confessed, but also a reminder that I was human, foolish and fragile like anyone else. Yet she was clear. The affair was not the defining story of her life. Survival was. Through war, abuse, rejection, heartbreak, professional reinvention, and devastating personal loss, Julie Andrews had endured with resilience and dignity. Her revelation did not tarnish her legacy. If anything, it deepened it, reminding the world that behind the perfect nanny and the spirited nun was a woman who had lived a complicated, very human life under relentless public scrutiny. Her singing voice may be silent now, but her story continues to resonate. She gave the world joy, hope, and now, unvarnished truth. Proof that even the brightest stars carry shadows, and perhaps it is in acknowledging those shadows that Julie Andrews shines most brightly of all. As she entered the later chapters of her life, Julie Andrews carried herself with the same poise that had defined her on stage, but there was also a newfound candor. Having built a career on discipline and control, never letting the cracks show in public, she seemed, in her 80s and 90s, to find strength in vulnerability. In interviews and appearances, she no longer needed to play the perfect nanny or the unshakable star. She allowed herself to be fully human, sharing the lessons and scars she had carried for nearly a century. The confession of her mid-1960s affair was part of that evolution. For decades, she had been the model of elegance, the embodiment of restraint, the actress who managed to navigate Hollywood without ever becoming fodder for scandal. When she finally admitted to her moment of weakness, it was not in the spirit of spectacle, but in the hope of honesty. an acknowledgement that even those who seem invincible sometimes falter. To many, her willingness to tell the truth late in life did not diminish her, but rather deepened the admiration they already held. It showed that beneath the legendary poise was a woman who had stumbled, regretted, and grown, just like anyone else. The loss of her singing voice remained one of the most painful chapters of her life, but it also revealed her extraordinary ability to adapt. She often described it as a kind of grieving process, mourning a part of herself that could never return. Yet even in that grief, she discovered new outlets for expression. Her children's books, co-written with her daughter Emma, became an essential part of her legacy. Gentle, imaginative works that introduced kindness, resilience, and joy to young readers. The act of writing for children allowed her to continue giving the gift of storytelling even without her voice. And through projects like Julie's Green Room, she used her platform to nurture creativity in children around the world, ensuring that her passion for the performing arts lived on in a new generation. Her family remained her anchor. With Blake Edwards, she shared a marriage that endured more than 4 decades, sustained by humor, resilience, and the shared understanding of two artists who had both faced triumphs and failures. Their partnership was far from easy. His depression tested her deeply, and her own grief over the loss of her voice often weighed heavily, but they managed to remain each other's greatest supporters until his death in 2010. Her children and grandchildren became her focus in his absence, grounding her in love and everyday joys far from the spotlight. What makes Julie Andrews' story resonate so powerfully is not just the beauty of her performances, but the contrast between her public image and private reality. To generations of fans, she will forever be Mary Poppins descending from the sky, or Maria von Trapp spinning joyfully in the mountains. But the full story of her life reveals resilience in the face of wartime terror, survival after abuse, perseverance through professional rejection, courage in confronting failure, and dignity in owning her flaws. When she admitted to the affair that once haunted her, she reframed it not as a scandal, but as a reminder of her humanity. She had lived a life of dazzling triumphs and deep scars, and both were part of who she was. In the end, Julie Andrews' legacy cannot be reduced to a single role, a single song, or even a single mistake. It is the accumulation of her courage, her artistry, and her willingness to keep reinventing herself when life demanded it. She remains a symbol not of perfection, but of perseverance. Her voice may no longer fill a theater, but her story continues to speak volumes about survival, about compassion, and about the quiet strength of embracing one's imperfections.